A warm welcome from the Zero Project Conference 2024. It's a 3-day conference here at the UN in Vienna on the topic of education concerning persons with disability, and we also talk about information and communication technology. You are watching a Fireside chat, and it's a great pleasure for me to have you, Thomas BIGNAL, with me. He's General Secretary of EASPD. And Thomas, please introduce yourself and also your organization to the audience.
Hello, hello. First of all, many thanks for the invitation. It's always great to be here at the Zero Project, the place to be on these issues. So yes, I am the General Secretary of EASPD, which is the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities, which basically brings together over 20,000 organizations, support services from across over 40 European countries. And what we try and do is to make sure we can build good quality support systems in line with human rights principles across Europe to enable people with disabilities to live the lives they want to live.
And yourself, Thomas, what's your background, your educational background? How did you join and end up in EASPD?
So I'm British, born in London. My apologies. So I moved to Brussels around 15 years ago. Did a master's in international law. Then I started to work in the EU scene, and I was really trying to find a meaning for my career in some way. And then I went back to the UK for a few months, and I started volunteering in some ways a leisure centre for people with intellectual disabilities. So far away from the policy discussions, really rooted in a small village in England, and that really got me really brought me into this world, into the disability movement, and I knew from there that I really wanted to make a difference. And then using my skills, which are more politically related skills, I knew that at EASPD I would be able to do that. And also in this organisation I met really thousands and thousands of dedicated professionals who do their best and really on a day-to-day basis to improve lives, and that's so empowering too.
Wonderful. Being Brussels-based means you're in the center of policy making. So what's your broader political agenda for it on social issues?
So I think quite often a lot of people, when they think about Brussels, they don't think about social policy, far from it. And partly or if they do think about social policy, maybe they don't have the best ideas around it. But actually behind the scenes, there's really a growing movement around disability rights. So for example, since a few years, there's the European Disability Rights Strategy 2030, which is really trying to make sure that member states, first of all, know about disability rights, but more practically learn from each other on how to put it in practice. And it can be from, for example, employment in the open labour market. It can be around deinstitutionalization, a good initiative in one country, policy-wise or practice-wise, it works. And so how can another country, why shouldn't another country use that? And so a lot of the European work is about these discussions, peer learning, not from services to services or from person to person, but from country to country. And if France has a good practice that's proven to work, why can't Greece do it too? And then we have a whole system behind that of a little bit beyond the policy and the legislation of EU funds. EU funds is huge, and to be able to use that money to really shape innovation in our field of work at national level, at local level, in the villages, in the towns, is really important and effective, and that's what we try and shape. Yeah.
And so you are in between basically the policy shaping, and then you're heading also a very powerful organization. No, you have I think more than 300 organizations that you're the umbrella and representing them not only in EU countries but also in other countries as well.
Exactly. Predominantly in Europe, of course, but more and more we're trying to explore what happens in South America. So next year, I think you have the Zero Project, for example, in Latin America. We will try to be there to really learn what's happening from services and organizations there, and also maybe bring our experiences too. So we definitely are looking also more and more outside of Europe to learn and to improve what we do. But yeah, we are predominantly focused on within Europe, not just the European Union, but also outside. Again, learning from each other, creating a real community, which I think we have developed. And in some ways we're working politically externally as lobbyists per se, or advocates. But also we have a lot of work to do internally as a sector. We need to transform the way that we provide support, move away from outdated models towards more inclusive forms of support. And it's not easy. It's not easy because you don't know how to do it. You know it's the right direction, but you don't know how to do it. And then you also don't often have the right legislation that can support you, the right funding frameworks that can support you. So we really, really want to work also on changing mindsets in our sector, but also changing legislation at local level, national level, European level, and sometimes international level too.
I know that you're working on a declaration. Please tell us about it.
So yeah, last October, so it's about social innovation. And what does it really mean? Because we always hear about social innovation right, left, and center, and it's a little bit everything. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes social innovations are not social innovations. And that's a real problem for our sector in terms of moving forward. How can we be legitimate if something that says it's a social innovation, which is not in line with the UN Convention, for example, or not at least going in that direction? And we don't want that. And so we're trying to create a cross-European definition and understanding of what social innovation means for support services for persons with disabilities, what it doesn't mean, what it does mean, and of course we take huge inspiration from the UN Convention on the rights of persons with disabilities and really the multitude of discussions around that. And the European Union is also active on social innovation, so we try to shape what they do, but also learn from what they do too.
Thomas, also tell us how you trickle down your information. I know you run 2 conventions a year on different topics, but on top of that, or additionally, how do you communicate to your members? How can we, imagine this process and the information flow?
So we do so in different ways. We have, of course, the governance, the mainstream governance, and that's incredibly important, of course, in shaping what we do. We also have 8 member forums. In some ways, they're working committees on separate thematics. We have on employment, we have on education, on inclusive living, but also on technology, person-centered technology, on arts and culture, on workforce development. And these member forums, they bring basically our members who are interested in these topics together, and then they can do different things. So sometimes it can be more policy work, sometimes it can be projects where we use EU funds, for example, Erasmus Plus, to initiate exchange between people, and sometimes it can be research too. So we have 8 member forums that meet regularly, and they're of course co-chaired by our members. But we also do sometimes, for example, policy cafes. So when you have sometimes quite a complex new European legislation, it's not always easy to understand. For example, the EU Disability Card. Sounds simple. It's not always. State aid, Accessibility Act, etc. We try and create the grounds for the space for presenting this EU legislation in a easier way to understand, and having that discussion with our members too, so translating it in some ways. We also do the same for new research, for example, and a new instrument we use is called EASPD Innovation Awards, where we really try and identify the best practices, maybe not always perfect, but the best practices that exist in different fields. And right now, for example, our Innovation Awards this year is on transforming support for people with mental health problems. And so that's also work that we do in terms of trying to bridge the gap between the international, the European, and the work of our members too.
Thomas, this year's conference is on education, and next year's will be on employment. We think it's, there is no ranking of importance. All of them are equally crucial. What's the role of the European community in it, and how can they really influence policies and then the actual work on the ground?
So let's take employment. Most, let's say, legislation around employment-related, so activation policies, employment policies, labor market policies, are national level, or sometimes regional level, especially in Austria, for example, which is very regionalized. But there are still steps that the European Union can take. So, for example, they are doing what's called the Disability Employment Package, and they're identifying good practices in different fields. It can be about vocational rehabilitation, it can be about health and safety, it can be about good hiring practices from around Europe and the world, and again showcasing at national level how it can be done and initiating that discussion. Because often we think really in like horses, where we know who have the sides at national level, and we're trying to get away from that. So that's this is not so much legislation, but learning from each other about good practices. But maybe for me, the most important is where the EU does legislate, and it legislates around public procurement. I think 14% of the EU GDP is public procurement, and the EU directive allows local authorities, public authorities, to really buy social, to buy in a way that can create job opportunities for people with disabilities. The issue is that people don't do that. Local authorities or regional authorities don't do that enough, and we're really trying to change that. Another area is state aid policies. So in general, within the European Union, the state cannot just subsidize companies like that. That would be unfair competition. But in certain circumstances, they can. And where they can is typically to boost the employment of persons with disabilities. Again, we see a lot of fear by authorities on using the potential of EU legislation. And so what we're trying to do is say, be brave, go forward, use the EU state aid flexibility to make sure that companies who employ people with disabilities can, for example, get subsidies for reasonable accommodation measures and so forth. And this can really make a difference too. So it's a mixture of best practices, mutual learning, etc., but also very concrete EU legislation.
Thomas, you represent this big umbrella organization. How do you make sure that there is a quality support levels of, not on the minimals, but that you, come across to your member organizations at one service level?
It's a really tricky question because Europe is extremely diverse in terms of quality frameworks, quality levels, cultural aspects, economic aspects, and so forth. EASPD, in our view, we're not the police of the sector. We're not here to say what's good or what's bad, particularly on a day-to-day basis, because I don't think many people want to do bad. If you're working in our area of work, trying to support people with disabilities, you want to do good, and sometimes you just don't know what good is. And so that's something that we try and help, and we try and build capacity of workers in the field around these issues. And we're leading a cross-European initiative called Care for Skills, which is trying to build the capacity of social care workers in our area of work, which is for persons with disabilities, but also for older persons or people with mental health problems. And we're trying to create cross-European legislation, cross-European curricula on, for example, person-centered support, supported decision-making, and issues like that. The Commission is also coming out later this year with a framework of social services of excellence. It doesn't sound, it's not the easiest on the lips. But what it will do is give, on the one hand, guiding principles to member states on how quality frameworks should be done. What is the way forward? Are we looking at, are there fire extinguishers, or are we looking at co-production? And so that's a simple way of putting it, but that's what we're doing. And hopefully we'll also, again, put a bit more pressure on member states on really developing quality frameworks, quality assurance systems, because right now they are very, very poor. And not just in one country, but generally speaking throughout Europe. And we need to change that. The Commission wants to change that, and hopefully the member states too. So there will be this cross-European framework of social services of excellence later this year, which we're trying to help and implement.
Thomas, we are fairly early in the year 2024. We have been talking about the European Accessibility Act, which comes into force in most countries, most member states during next year. What's your outlook for 2024? What's your highlight? I think you have two conferences coming up. What will they be about?
So later this year, we have a conference already in May, very soon, on effectively transforming support for people with mental health or psychosocial disabilities, avoiding medical approaches, avoiding psychiatric hospitals. How can we promote inclusion in these areas as well? It's a little bit of a new direction for EASPD, but actually we had a working group on mental health years ago, but really trying to bring back that angle for us, because our members have growing challenges around the mental health of the people that they're supporting. They also have new people who come to their services who have mental health difficulties, so we're trying to shape that in the right way and to make the most. Later then in Athens, we will have a conference on open labor market employment and what type of support models can really help make a difference there. How can we support businesses, not persons with disabilities, but at the end, that will be how can we support as in some ways specialized support services? How can we help businesses to be more inclusive? Because generally speaking, I think businesses want to in some ways, but they don't always know how. And so we want to explore what support services exist. You have, of course, supported employment, but there's many others out there as well. And so we're really trying to focus on open labor market employment and really making progress there. So these are a few ideas on what we're doing moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I know you have to run to the next panel. It's always a pleasure to have you, and it's I think it's important to know what is happening in this, in the jungle of Brussels. And you gave us very good insights, and good luck for your work, and good luck for your new position.
Thank you very much.
You've been watching a fireside chat here from the Zero Project Conference 2024. The conference is on education for persons with disability and on ICT. And thank you for watching this Fireside. Thank you.